Hello, and welcome to the 2025 edition of Inclusive Design 24. Uh, this event is brought to you in partnership with our Platinum supporters, Accessibility Cloud and Intopia. Social media, we have it. If you do as well, you can follow us on Mastodon, LinkedIn, and Blue Sky. If you have questions for the presenters, you can post them on social media using the ID24 hashtag. You can also use the YouTube chat, which we are monitoring to gather your questions to ask at the end of the session. Also, as a reminder, Inclusive Design 24 is a respectful community. You can find the code of conduct on the Inclusive Design 24 website. And now I am thrilled to be joined once again by my guest host, Dave. Take it away.
Hello, everybody. Um, Next up, we have Reinaldo. He's going to talk about advancing the web accessibility using standardization and localization in Brazil. So, take it away, Reinaldo.
Hello, thank you, Eric. Thank you, Dave, for the introduction. My name is Reinaldo Ferraz, and my presentation is about how we are advancing web accessibility in Brazil, especially how to bring to the local scenario the compliance with international standards. It's an important moment in Brazil, especially because there are some initiatives underway to increase the compliance the website compliance with web accessibility standards. Just a brief introduction. I've been working with web development for the past 26 years, and I've been involved with web accessibility since around 2006. And this is my second time here at the ID24, and it's a privilege and an honor to be part of this event playlist. So thank you again to having me here. This is the best way to find me online on social networks like LinkedIn, Instagram, or even TikTok. You can find me as at Reinaldo Ferraz. Um, I'm a web development specialist at CWeb.br. CWeb is the Web Technology Study Center in Brazil, and I also work for the W3C chapter São Paulo. Both are initiatives of NIC.br and the Brazilian Internet Steering Committee. We have a lot of initiatives in Brazil for web accessibility, including publishing booklets, translations, academic papers, training, and some discussion groups about web accessibility. So you can find some projects at this URL, cweb.br/en/web accessibility. So let's start with a brief introduction about the Brazilian scenario, considering websites in compliance with web accessibility standards. So according to some surveys, the number of websites in compliance with standards of web accessibility in Brazil is very low. I'm showing here on the screen the two of them. One is from our project called ICT Web Accessibility, that we collect web pages under .gov.br websites, and then we check the compliance with web accessibility standards. We collected more than 500,000 web pages from almost 1,500 Brazilian websites, and the results are not so good. It's the same percentage as the other surveys in Brazil that say that around less than 3% of the websites follow standards for web accessibility. In fact, it's a bad scenario, but it's similar to other surveys around the world, like the 1 million page survey from WebAI identified that almost 95% of the top website homepages had WCAG 2 failures. So based on this scenario, I started to search for laws and regulation about web accessibility, especially to understand what we can learn from other initiatives around the world. I had a great conversation with some colleagues from Portugal to learn how they deal with local laws and how to apply considering international standards. And then I could identify in a brief survey some laws and technical requirements around the world that considers web accessibility compliance, like Australia, Canada, United States, and the European Union. All of them have laws and technical documentation that basically refers to WCAG. Besides some countries in European Union, all of these countries are English speaking, so which makes the compliance at least a little bit easier. The documentation, the EN 301549 developed by ETSI, it's a good example because it covers a lot of technologies, and then when mentioned about the web, refers to the W3C standards and defines the level of compliance. And talking about the Brazilian scenario, the regulation started around 2000, 2004, with this decree, the 5296, that regulated some previous laws and set some important definitions for web accessibility. In this article, this 47 article, the decree indicates that within 12 months from the date of the publication of this decree, accessibility shall be mandatory on the portals and the websites of the public administration on the World Wide Web for the use by persons with visual impairments, including them full access to the available information. Even with the limitation and considering accessibility only for people with visual impairments, it's a huge milestone for digital accessibility at this time. And in the same document, they use the national standards. They mention about the national standards to follow. In its Article 14, the decree indicates that in promoting accessibility, the general rules set for this decree will be observed, supplemented by ABNT, that's the acronym by Brazilian Association of Technical Standards, the technical accessibility standards, and the provisions containing these legislations of the states, municipalities, and the federal district. The problem here is that there is no Brazilian technical standard in 2004, so there's a kind of limbo to be in compliance with the law. And finally, in 2015, the Brazilian inclusion law was released, expanding the scope to include not only people with visual impairments, but all persons with disabilities. And this law brings more in its Article 63. The law mentions that accessibility is mandatory on websites maintained by companies headquartered in or with commercial representation in the country, as well as by government agencies for use by persons with disabilities, ensuring them access to available information, accordance with internationally adopted best practice and accessibility guidelines. So now not only the government websites, but also private sector websites must be accessible according to this law. And the law refers to the internationally adopted best practices, which clearly points to WCAG, but it doesn't explicitly or mention WCAG or even define the compliance level. And this gap has made enforcement a little bit complicated. That's why the society started a movement to translate and create technical standards to be used as a tool to follow the law. Okay, there is no Brazilian technical standard for that, so under the Brazilian Association of Technical Standards, we start working to create this standard. This association is a non-profit organization engaged in the development of national standards. It's important to say that the standards developed in this association, they are not free, but standards for accessibility and even web accessibility, they are free of charge. So the society can use without paying for these standards. So in the beginning of 2020, the association called us to create a study group to create a technical standard for digital accessibility. They elected me as the chair of this group to coordinate the development of the standards. And there was a pressure to create a standard for the web. And well, part of the group agreed that WCAG already exists and it's enough for digital accessibility. And then we started to create a standard for mobile apps first. And well, we spent more than 2 years creating this documentation based on W3C documents and other international standards. And we learned a lot about this development because, for example, we started with a monthly meeting to discuss the standard. And then at the end of the process, we had around 2 to 3 hours meeting twice a week. So it was insane at the end of the process. The documentation was released as standard in October 2022, and at the beginning of the next year, we start to work on the standard for the web, especially because of the laws that were asking for the documentation for the web. And even with all the experience that we had during this period, we had to schedule some face-to-face meetings during the whole day to make these things faster. And we applied everything we learned from the first document to start this new one. Well, meetings were scheduled weekly, at least at the beginning. At the end, we had around 2 or 3 meetings every week. And we were tracking the WCAG 2.2 development to be aligned with the international standard. I think the main objective is to get connected with the international standard and waiting to become a recommendation to follow precisely the content of the documentation. And then we were very careful not to create a Brazil-specific standard. So this standard we worked for should strictly follow the WCAG 2.2. And we just created an easy way to understand the international standard in Portuguese. Well, it's a huge group that worked with this documentation, around 180 members. And of course, not all of them were working regularly, but at least 20 of them attended each meeting. And I think most of them were specialists in web accessibility in Brazil. And the standard is divided in requirements and the recommendations. So the requirements are based on the WCAG 2.2, level A and AA success criteria, and the recommendations are the AAA success criteria. The standard defines two compliance levels, the regular compliance and the full compliance. The regular compliance is based on all the requirements, which means all WCAG 2.2 success criteria level A and AA needs to be fit, and especially to be connected with what is adopted internationally in other countries. And then to get the full compliance, you need to cover the WCAG 2.2 level AAA. So the standard is organized in sections covering areas such as keyboard interaction, images, heading, all the content that you probably know about the WCAG 2.2. And here's an example how the items are presented in this standard. Sorry, it's still in Portuguese. And at the top, where there are the number, the name, and the description of the item. For example, in this case, is the error prevention is listed as a recommendation because it's based on WCAG success criteria 336. It's a AAA success criteria and requires that all forms provide a way to reverse, review, or confirm the data. But if a website complies with this recommendation, it's also likely to meet the requirement, error prevention for critical forms, that's similar to WCAG 334, AA success criteria, which applies to forms with legal or financial commitments for the user. So this form also should require a way to reverse review or confirm the data also. The idea here is to encourage the compliance with the recommendation and then consequently to get the compliance with the requirement in this case. That's what we're talking about this note on the screen. And there's also a section in this standard that covering problematic items for web accessibility. These are items that are widely used on the web. However, they could present some access barriers for people with disabilities. We cannot forbid this kind of items, but we provide recommendations for the use, like CAPTCHA, that you have to consider other modality of CAPTCHA, considering people who cannot see the image, for example. And then the documentation has also a checklist, including all the necessary information to evaluate the compliance based on WCAG success criteria. And talk about the results. There was a massive coverage by the local media because it's the first standard from the Brazilian Association of Technical Standards to cover accessibility on the web. So remember that I said about the gap because of the lack of technical standards. Now there's a standard to use for web accessibility compliance. And even the Brazilian government, they also celebrate the standard launch because it means that this could advance compliance with web accessibility standards in Brazil. And it's fun because this standard open possibilities to develop to create new products about it. One is a checklist in HTML format with a lot of filters to help compliance with the standard, and a browser plugin like a validator tool to check the compliance with WCAG and with the technical standard. Well, and in parallel to the standard development and the publication, we worked on the WCAG 2.2 authorized translation. Having the base standard in Portuguese was essential to support the local standards. And so we sent a proposal to W3C to create an authorized translation of this document. Well, this is not the first authorized translation that we developed. We started with WCAG 2 in 2014 and WCAG 2.2 in 2015. So the base of the translation was created with colleagues responsible for the Portugal version, and then we just adjust the details of each document for the local language. Well, first of all, why is a W3C authorized translation important? So, especially for non-English speakers, no? It can be used for official purpose in other language. So, it could support our effort to develop the technical standard in Portuguese. It enables non-English speakers to implement W3C standards. I know that English for technical content is widely used, but for some decision makers, it's important to have the documentation in this native language. And it extends the existing volunteer translation efforts to make the local community closer to the work in more initiatives. So I just want to present the steps for the authorized translation here and how we deal with them in case somebody wants to start this process with the W3C. Well, first, the lead translation organization submit the intention to translate. So we need to make the public the intention to translate the document because other organizations could have the same idea and avoid conflicts with other organizations. First, you need to send an email to W3C translators list to notify W3C of the intention to translate as an authorized translation. For this process, you need to invite stakeholders to review the translations. So we invited people from academia, from government, from private companies, and local organizations for people with disabilities. This last one is a W3C requirement for translations for accessibility documents. So I invited a lot of people, and we gathered around 30 confirmations of people who want to review the document. And with this name is ready, we need to create a review stakeholders list and then send to W3C. Well, the next step is the W3C evaluation of submission. So we have to wait for the W3C notification to start the review. If the submission is approved by W3C now, then we need to start the preparation of the candidate authorized translation. Then we start the preparation of the candidate authorized translation. We need to create a document in HTML using a W3C template and a boilerplate. And the page should be published online with no markup error or internalization issues with the W3C approval. We announce then on the translators mail list. And now we have started the official review process that it started with W3C announcing a review period of at least 30 days. Then W3C creates a list for discussion in the local language to document all the process and adjustments, and then the review starts using this translation language. The Brazilian Portuguese version and the Portuguese from Portugal version used the same list for the authorized translation process. And the next step is to notify the stakeholders about the review. So the review is not restricted only to stakeholders, and everybody can join the group to review. During this process, we need to monitor all the messages on the list to guarantee the review is approved in consensus by the group. So at the end of the review, we need to provide a list in English and in the language of the translation with the topics discussed in a summary of adjustments and announce W3C if it's a new review is necessary or not. At this moment, all the stakeholders listed at the beginning of the process, they need to send an email informing them that they agree with the final document. And I think this is the most difficult part of the process because it took time and some people just moved to other companies or forgot to review the document. Some people even did not remember that they agreed with the review of the document. And then to speed things up, we held some video conference to discuss the review, and then we documented all the adjustments on the list. So this makes the work faster, but even with these video conference meetings, we spent more than 1 year during this review process. And the last part is to review all the contributions and the confirmation. So if the document is not okay, start the review again. And if it's okay, we need to provide a valid HTML document with UTF-8 encoding, follow some internationalization's best practices. The document needs to use the same CSS as the original document, the original recommendation, and they need to provide a disclaimer, boilerplate, and then a HATA web page. So if everything is okay, W3C publishes the document on the translator's web page. Well, the same as the local standard development, the media coverage was good and helped us a lot to spread this translation to the local community. And well, just a brief conclusion about the process to work with these two documents. Working with these two documents showed us that standards in the local language are essential to move regulation forward. Now there's a movement in Brazil to adopt these two documents as the base for web accessibility in Brazil. And just reinforcing that we are not creating a local standard. We are just working to make the international standard easy to understand in our local language. And I think another key benefit has been the community engagement. So many web accessibility specialists worked together to ensure that the documents reflected the original and the international standard. So every meeting with them was a dense class, a huge class about web accessibility. And it was an honor to coordinate these two initiatives. And I hope this can change the Brazilian scenario about web accessibility. And thank you again for the opportunity to present our work in Brazil. Here are my contacts. You can find me on the web as Reinaldo Ferraz, or if you want to send me an email, my email is Reinaldo@NIC.br. And if you still have time, I'll be happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Reinaldo, thank you. That was a great talk. I should turn my lamp on so it's not just a thumb in your video view. Great talk. I really appreciated that, especially the history and the background and sort of giving us some insight into the W3C process as well as what you had to go through. Dave, I think we might have some questions queued up.
Well, yes, we do indeed. The first one's going to come straight from me. You were talking about the Brazilian Association of Technical Standards. I'm assuming that's similar to like the technical architect group and the the words have left my brain. The working groups that we have as part of the W3. Is that correct? And
Yeah.
as a follow-on, 1 second, does Brazil have representatives as part of the W3, the W3C, and on these working groups?
Okay. Partially, I think answering the first question, I think partially the same as the working groups. In fact, we worked as a working group, but I think this technical standard association, it's look like the ESTI, like the European ESTI institution to develop standards. But yes, it's very similar to the W3C process. And answering the second question, yes, we have some people from Brazil working in companies that are acting in working groups, part of the working groups. I'm part of working groups. I'm not so active in working groups. I'm following the accessibility guidelines, working groups, and but we don't have so many people active in these working groups. I think a good idea is to bring more Brazilian to work in these working groups with the W3C also.
That seems like a good idea.
Yeah.
Having global representation is a fantastic idea. My next question, again, this is from me, and excuse my absolute ignorance. You spoke about translating all of these documents, and there is a standard for going about translating these documents. I work on a website that is translated into Brazilian Portuguese as well. But is there a difference between Brazilian Portuguese and Portuguese Portuguese?
Yeah, the structure is almost the same, but the problem is that you sometimes you have some specific words that are important for technical content. For example, I can tell you the difference between when you talk about the screen, when you talk about something on the screen. In
Yeah.
Portuguese from Portugal, you usually say ecrã. In Portuguese from Brazil, it's tela. So it's different, and that's why we had a large conversation with W3C when we translated the WCAG 2, because they suggest us to use as a singular standard for both. And the community said, no, it's impossible because there are technical terms that each language has
Yeah.
specific questions important for the translation. So that's why there is a Portuguese translation and a Brazilian Portuguese translation.
Yeah, I get that totally. I find in my day-to-day job, having to spell the word color wrong every single time hurts me to my soul. But that's just one of those things that I've had to deal with. I have thought about writing the JavaScript library just to correct that, but yeah, it's probably not the greatest of ideas. So,
Yeah,
um,
but just to complement but it's good because the structure, the verbs and all the structure of the language is the same. Only some specific words are different.
yeah,
So it's easy if we have a document from European Portuguese and Brazilian Portuguese, we can read without problems,
yeah,
only with a couple of differences.
cool. So, when you were going through this whole process, what was the most surprising thing with your efforts?
I think my surprise is the engagement of the community in Brazil. It's amazing because I work for the NIC.br. We are hosting the W3C chapter, so it's part of my job dealing with these initiatives. But there are people from private sector, from academia, that they spend like 2, 3 hours in meetings and without having paid for that, and join the group to discuss because it's an important issue for accessibility. It's an important document for accessibility. That I think my biggest surprise is the engagement of the Brazilian community. A lot of web accessibility specialists joined the group just to guarantee the quality of the final product. That was amazing.
Yeah, that's
I think that's a global thing. When you look at people who work in accessibility, they give their time away, and they also seem to be quite nice people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's, that's pretty cool. So if you could start this all over again, would you change anything, or would it be exactly the same? Is there any thing you would do differently about this process?
Uh, I think almost the same. We developed the two standards, the first for the mobile apps and then for the web accessibility. The first one was a crazy work because uh, at the beginning we thought that a monthly meeting it's enough for creating this document. So it's impossible to consider one monthly, 1 week, one meeting in a month to create this kind of product. So we start to test like a fortnightly meeting, and then a weekly meeting, and at the end we had the official meeting, and then working groups developing part of the documents. So at the beginning was insane, but I think I wouldn't change so many things. I think probably I would try to bring other participants from other sectors that's not involved with the team to bring other perspectives to documentation, because even considering that the technical standard association it's open for everyone. I've heard some people that say, "Oh, I was not aware of this kind of development, so I would like to join. I would like to contribute." So probably I spent some time to spread information about how to join this group to have more people involved.
That's yeah. Moving on from a similar way. have you or have you thought about working with other countries and languages that are also going through the same kind of process? I mean, because at the moment you're dealing with Portuguese, but I'm sure in South America there are other languages such as Spanish that and is that have you done any work with other countries to work on translations into their languages as well and learn things from each other?
Yeah, not yet. We started with Portugal because they had a lot of insights to develop our work here in Brazil, connected with some specific laws. They are a little bit ahead with this part of connecting laws and technical standard. But now we are planning to spread this knowledge on how to develop this kind of process and documentation to other countries that speak Portuguese. So we have all the documentation, we have all the process documented. So I think our first step is to share with the community from other countries that people speak Portuguese to help them with this process also, but not yet.
Not yet. So at the moment, that plan is just for other Portuguese-speaking countries and not just sharing. I totally understand there is a barrier between doing different languages, but yeah, excellent.
We're starting with the with Portuguese speakers, especially because these two documents, the standard and the authorized translation, was released on March this year. So it's brand new documentation. So we're trying to put them working in Brazil first, and then try to spread
Yeah,
and working with other countries.
cool. So, also along that line, is there anything that you feel that the W3 could help to help with these efforts and other things in the future?
Yeah, I think could be. I think W3C could help with this process. I think, in fact, W3C helped a lot with the authorized translation, not only following the rules, but helping us how to solve some issues with some situations and some specific terms that in Portuguese would sound better. So W3C is an important partner in this process, and I think we're planning to present them this documentation that we developed, and then I think they could be a very important partner in this project.
Very cool.
Oh,
Dave, you're
it's mute.
muted.
Have you exhausted all of your questions, Dave? I'm used to just lining them up.
Oh, there we go. I've learned technology again. One final question that I've got on my
Okay.
list. Um, are there any particular words that were difficult or interesting for you to translate, or
Wow.
anything that was really amusing to you because of the translations?
Yeah, words are hard.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. There's one that we had some not problem, but it took time to make a decision. It's when you were translated in Portuguese, you say legendas, but in English you can say subtitles or captions. So subtitles, I think we change it. I don't remember exactly the term, but I think for subtitles we change for hidden captions, and then the for captions we call only legendas. I'm not sure, but I remember that this specific word took time to have a decision with the group.
That's amazing. Yeah, I always love little details like that. I also just wanted to say thank you for both this talk and for your efforts there. Like, it is the world in the World Wide Web, and like hearing about this effort to extend it, as well as like the groundswell of support that came from your community to help just really, really gives me the warm fuzzies. So thank you for all your efforts here.
No, thank you
I
so much. It's a pleasure to present this work here. For me, this conference is very important, and it's a nice, a great space to present our efforts in Brazil. So it's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you guys.
Well, we're also very happy with the conference and thrilled that you can be here and help make it what it is. So thank you. And this is the part where I'm going to do our outro. It's even scripted, so I don't get it wrong. So if you liked this session, and I know that you did, mash that YouTube like button. And don't forget that you can subscribe to our channel to be kept in the loop on our future events. Inclusive Design 2024, I almost said 20, yeah. Inclusive Design 24 in this year of 2025 is brought to you with thanks to our platinum supporters, Accessibility Cloud and Intopia, our silver supporter, Intuit, and bronze supporters, the Law Office of Laney Feingold, Mantis and Company, and Vispero. Inclusive Design 24 will be back on the hour with our next session, and we fully expect to see you then. Thank you.
Thank you.